Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you so much for making it today after a very busy Thursday. And today we're going to talk about speed. And given that we're in Amsterdam, I thought I need to add that we're talking about organizational speed or organizational nimbleness. If you have any other association with the word speed, that's the wrong session today. So we're going to talk about speed, and we're going to talk about the specifics of what we call here smart omnichannel fulfillment for in-time retailing. You might have noticed, if I go back, here it says on time. And this is actually no longer relevant. You need to be on time anyway, but the key is to be in time. And what that means, I'm going to explain in a few minutes. We're living, and I'm going to argue that we're living in an accelerating economy where speed again matters a lot. And in retailing, one of the key, or I should say, pun intended, prime drivers is of course Amazon. They have set the bar. I've got a couple of statistics for any of you who are also in the retailing space. That would be my first question. Who of you is in the retail business? Who of you is a retailer or a brand selling direct with a store network? Oh, the vast majority. Brilliant. So the good news is, if you listened or did read the abstract, the good news is, given your setup, i.e. you have a physical network of stores, you can outcompete Amazon with new technologies such as the one that we are presenting and talking about today. One thing up front, and this is about this term, in-time retailing, it is not speed per se. We're going to have 3 case studies that we're going to talk about in terms of speed. One is actually speed per se, but it is not, strictly speaking, about speed per se. It's not about who is the fastest. It's not about the fastest will win. It is about what we call the situational, the situational consumer. It is not always needed that you get whatever it is that you've ordered online, pick it up in a store, or get it home delivered within minutes or hours or same day. Sometimes you can wait. And that is key to understand when it is the right time, and that is what we mean with in time, to deliver whatever it is that your customers order. Okie doke. So this is sort of the agenda. Let's go through this. We are living in an accelerating economy. Product life cycles are shortening. Those of you familiar with cars, these days, if, for example, you have a Tesla, you get a new car every week with over-the-air software updates, as an example. Those of you using smartphones, like the iPhone, has the fastest diffusion of all products ever produced. And you see acceleration across the board. Just think about fast fashion. It used to be you have fashion items for the seasons, and there's the Inditex group that has sort of revolutionized fast retailing in the sense that every week, every day you go to their stores, there's something new. So we see an acceleration in the economy, in the wider economy, and specifically, as I mentioned early on, with regards to retailing with Amazon. And I got 2 statistics from our friends from Westphalia Technology, which is an amazing number. I hope you can read it, but let me read it out. They asked consumers about their perception about delivery and the speed of delivery. And the vast majority, it's nearly 90% of consumers expect you, not being Amazon, to be even faster than Amazon in terms of delivery, speed, and convenience. And that is what sort of the logic is. They say, well, Amazon has revolutionized. In a previous talk yesterday, talked about the omnichannel era or retail 4.0. They have revolutionized one-click shopping, the convenience of shopping, the process of shopping, and they have also revolutionized delivery speed with Prime, Amazon Prime, basically, usually, typically next day delivery. And your prospects, your consumers expect you to be even faster than that, or better than that, because otherwise they go to Amazon. However, and that's the second statistic, only 15% think that the delivery speed, and it's not necessarily, as I said, about being faster, but about being in time, is sufficient. So there's huge room for improvement in terms of how to become faster. And as I said, the beauty is, and I would say it was probably 75-80% of you guys in the audience, you have a physical network, and there have been discussions about brick and mortar, brick and click, etc. Is it a liability to have a store in a central location? increasingly this is an asset. If you have a strong retail network in good location, that's an asset, specifically if you activate your store network, not just selling goods that are on display, but also using your store network for fulfillment in the sense of micro fulfillment hubs as well as returns. And by doing so, you can be faster. And it depends on the industry. What industries do we have? Do we have fashion retailers? Fashion. Do we have food, convenience? Okay, so let's just stick to these two industries. Very different. In your case, for example, the reference for food delivery in, say, China, which is for me currently leading in terms of retail tech, 30 minutes. If I order online, if I want my food, I'm not talking about consumption, I'm talking about I want my pasta for cooking later, the timeline is about 30 minutes. We see a quick commerce case in a few minutes, so that is 15 minutes that we enabled in Poland with the market leader for convenience stores there. And in fashion, it's different. I don't think you need your jeans within 30 minutes. It might be good to have it next day, but depending on what you sell, depending on what brand it is, it's also okay to have it within 2 to 3 days. We'll see an example later on from the fashion industry, a fashion retailer, where they see, because currently they have a delivery time of about 9 to 11 days, that doesn't work. After 5 days, people cancel their order. But if you're within 2 to 3 to maybe 5 days in fashion, that's all right. So key really is think about the situational consumer, think about in-time retailing. And with this, I did bring with me 3 examples of retailing, in-time retailing and speed. The first one is the Żabka group. Żabka is Polish for frog. Anyone knows this company? So let me briefly explain. They are the market leader in the convenience store food market, if you like. They have about 7,000 stores. And what we did with them, you see this is a delivery lady. We implemented with them something called Q-commerce or quick commerce. This is delivery in that case within 15 minutes. So you order whatever it is that you order, your pasta, your milk, your butter, you have it at your doorstep within 15 minutes. And that's sort of the process. So the consumer has an app, he or she picks whatever he or she is picking. The order goes to, in that case, Żabka. And they know, of course, where the order was placed. They know what was ordered. They have about 5 to 6 minutes max to pick the things in so-called dark stores, which are in central. This works in central, I should mention that. This works in central locations. If you're in remote places, if you have, you're originally from Australia, that's not going to work. If you're way, way, way back in the wilderness, if you like, of course, that's going to work. Within Melbourne, within Sydney, this is going to work. So they have 5 to 6 minutes to pick the things in so-called dark stores in central locations, and then maybe let's just go back quickly, and then you see, and then you see these people on bicycles delivering to your doorstep. Very, very fast. The reference, as I said, for these kind of things in Beijing, for example, one of the leading markets is 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be 15, but it has to be within 30 minutes, and it goes as fast as under 10 minutes. Very, very quick. In some cases, let's say, think about the situation, a consumer, you're cooking. Oh, I forgot butter. Then it might make sense to get it within 15 minutes. Again, your jeans, probably you can wait a few days. So this is what we did with Żabka in the e-food segment. And you might wonder, is that relevant? Have you ever done this? Who's ordered and got whatever it is that you ordered in terms of e-food within 15 minutes, 10 minutes? So one person, all right. So the vast majority. So you might wonder how relevant is that. So I just thought I'd share this with you because we are here in the Netherlands. In Europe, generally, with the exception of the UK, typically a bit more innovative, let me say, versus continental Europe. But if you look at China, it's now already over 30% is happening in the e-food, e-commerce sector, and the US is now at about 15%. So it's very relevant. So if you're in that business, this is where we are also originally coming from. We are a spin-off of one of the largest supermarkets called Rewe, which is the equivalent to Tesco, say, in the UK. And this is where we're coming from. From a fulfillment side, of course, this is very complicated. A jeans is a bit easier to handle than a frozen pizza versus weighted goods, for example. So you need to take care of those things as well as substitutes. Often what you do is say you order an apple of type A, but you're okay with an apple type B, as an example, or milk brand A, milk brand B is also fine. When you order a jeans, I don't know, whatever size it is, whatever color, you don't want a different jeans, a different color. So these are some of the specifics in the food segment. So this is about speed per se, the importance of speed. And I added here the statistic from China. You need to be within 30 minutes in this specific industry. The second one is what applies to 80% of our customers and prospects. It's not about being so fast. It's not about quick commerce or Q-commerce. It's about speeding your processes. It's about speeding up your processes. And I thought this is a good example, and maybe just to hint at the image, this is not by accident. This is about fashion in this case. And this is an example of a typical setup. So would be a question. Let me explain the typical setup that we see with 80% of retailers, independent of industry actually. And then would be curious how you've set it up. This is a given country. I think this is Austria in this case. And typically what you have is stores and outlets across the country, okay, where you sell your goods, essentially. And you have a central warehouse. In the case of Austria or Germany is one. In the case of Australia, given the size, you probably have more, or America. And what happens is, in this case, somebody, I think probably Salzburg, orders something online from your store. What happens, in a lot of cases, the retailers have a separate online and offline business, logistics, warehouse, totally separated. And what happens is it's being shipped from a central warehouse to that location, and it takes, depending on the size of the country, 3 to 9. In one case, we even have 11 days on average for various reasons. It takes several days. And it's not just about time. It's also about, think about all these CO2 things, about transportation costs, distance being addressed. That is the typical setup. You were in fashion, if I remember correctly, correct? Is that also your setup currently? Brilliant. Thank you. That was the right answer. So how can you speed that up? So what we've done in this case is we've said, okay, why don't we connect all these stores, including the warehouse or the warehouses, to create an intelligent network of inventory? So how about we know where what is, essentially? And so what we did here in this case, as you can see, same guy ordering near Salzburg, say, but the system now knows what he or she has ordered, and the system knows that, oh, there's a store nearby exactly with those items. So wouldn't it make sense to then say, hey, either, dear customer, you can immediately go there, pick it up, so instantaneously, if you like. So reserve it for 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it might be. You can just pick it up. Instead of waiting 3 to 6 days, you just pick it up. Maybe that customer has a preference for shipment. So why not do ship from store? So in other words, you don't need to pick it up. I bring it home delivered to your location, whatever it might be, my home, some Dropbox, etc., etc. And it could be, if needed, same day. It could be CO2 neutral if it's in the center of a big city with some bicycle rider, or it could be within 2 to 3 days. And what you cover is maybe 5, 10, 20K in terms of distance, rather than from the central warehouse where it could be hundreds, or maybe in the case of Australia, thousands of miles. So that is the idea, to create a store network. And that's why I was asking, do you have physical stores? These are a key asset in terms of making this happen, in this specific case, ship from store. And leading companies such as Best Buy in the US, for example, they now fulfill 100%, that was at least what they said at the NGA this year, 100% of their online orders with the store network rather than the central warehouse, for speed, cost, efficiency purposes. And there's another key element, specifically if you say, dear customer, come and pick it up, in the sense of click and collect and click and reserve, you have traffic in your store. And that's fantastic, because what do you do when you have traffic in your store? Of course, you say, here is what you've ordered, but by the way, we've got something that goes well with your jeans. Cross-selling, upselling. You have a relationship all of a sudden with that anonymous person who has ordered online. What happened? Significant speeding up, in this case, up to same-day delivery, as well as picking it up within 30 minutes by intelligently integrating the store network. Third example is about in-time retailing specifically. I already alluded to it, and this is sort of a sneak peek of what some of the leading retailers are working on. In this case, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I used Best Buy. Best Buy, are you aware of Best Buy? Is sort of the media market of the US, if I might say so. So consumer electronics, essentially. And they, I should say, what they do, they've been leading, similar to what you mentioned, they've been leading this whole omnichannel game. They do this all internally, so I'm often referring to them because they cannot be a customer, sadly. And they don't work with a competitor to ours. They have, I think, thousands of IT staff. The beauty is you don't need to have thousands of IT staff. You can rely on specialists like us to do it for you. But they do it internally, so I always refer to them, as I said, because there's no competitor involved. And what they do is they look at in-time retailing across the basket, across the items that you've ordered. And maybe it's a bit too small, but what you see here is an example of an order of a customer. What you can see is what is being ordered probably falls into two groups. Because you see there's a TV screen, what is it, an LG LED 4K display, and some cable Ultra HD that somehow we would infer, we don't know why this person has ordered whatever he or she has ordered, probably relates to that screen. And then you see something totally different, which is a barbecue grill and a cover and some utensils. So it seems to be that there are two clusters of things that are being ordered. And now the question is, if you look at, say, the shipment options and the delivery options, does that make sense? It doesn't, right? Because, for example, it's probably too small, so let me read it out. You see that the cover, so towards the end of the season, the barbecue summer season, you need a cover to keep the thing safe for the next year maybe, will be delivered prior to the barbecue grill. That doesn't make sense. It should be the other way around. And this is an example of what they are working on. They are trying to understand groups that relate to each other, because this is logistics driven. These timing is purely logistics. That is in 99% of cases currently happening in retail. The thinking is the faster, the better. Or rather, I'm not even reflecting. I get something from the system, it's available. 5 or 6 items are in stock. And then I say, well, it's being delivered within a few days or whatever it might be. But that doesn't make sense from a consumer perspective. Again, think of what we call a situational consumer. It looks like two groups, the TV and the barbecue, so two groups of orders that relate to the usage, potentially, and there's something that relates to the timing of use. And they are now starting, and other retailers such as Target, for example, they are now starting to, and this is now the buzzword, of course, use AI, use massive amounts of data. If you have millions and millions of transactions, so you have sufficient amount of data to understand, to essentially do data mining, to arrive at these clusters of usages and then adapt your availability or your promise to delivery accordingly, following the consumer rather than the logistics logic. And it's not about speed per se, it's about in time. And it looks like these two things, the TV things, should be together because you will probably use both at the same time. These two are related, but not necessarily should they be used at the same time. It looks like this is for immediate use because the timing in terms of the order is important. It's spring, so barbecue season is starting, so probably I need this first, and the cover will be maybe in autumn or winter when I'm no longer needing that item. So that is the sort of the latest trend of what is happening, and that's what we mean with in time. So in conclusion, and I need to, this is the one thing I always forget where we are. So in conclusion, we are living in an accelerating economy. Speed is a source of competitive advantage, but it is not about speed per se. Think about the situational consumer. It's about in-time retailing. Those of you who have a store network, a physical store network, are at a very good position to outcompete even Amazon. activate your store network. If you think that is compelling as a story, there's now modern technology available to enable you to do that, such as the one provided by Fulfillment Tools. And you can find us, that's what I need to read out, at booth B37. I'm looking forward to your questions. I'm looking forward to seeing you at our booth. And with this, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Jürgen. We've got the mic. Yep. Invite anyone to ask any questions in regards to the presentation or just online fulfillment in general, I guess. We can go in a bit deeper. But,
anything goes.
Any questions from the crowd? If not, I will. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, thanks for taking that through. Yeah, obviously close to my heart, as I said, early stage. So just to give a bit of detail, we're doing it for Toys R Us. And the example you used there, they were moving basketball rings which weighed 400 or 500 kilos across Australia. So I was going from Sydney to Perth. They were costing, and they were going on the same truck as the ones they were putting into stores. Mm-hmm. So we realised pretty quickly that it made sense. But just in regards to how's the trends been from you've seen that?
Now 10:55.
With retailers, obviously.
One meeting on the stand of the sponsor. You have
Retailers now, in terms of adapting this, because that example happens a lot where people are trying to get things out the door. Obviously, the timings don't match up. But the example with the TV, if you haven't got the cables, you can't use the TV type of scenario. Are you finding retailers are still doing that, and hence, why you're coming into those businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it depends on country. Most advanced is China.
Now 10:25. We kindly remind you to visit the sales office at the front of the main hall to rebook your participation for Deliver Europe 2024 before we sell out. Thank you.
Hooray. Okay, got it. So I would say China is leading. US is next. In Europe, it's the UK. Overall, what we see if we listen to the analysts like Gartner and Forrester, the diffusion of, let's say, those omnichannel services in general, click and collect, ship from store, etc. In the US, it's about 60%, and in Europe, about 30%. So there's still a lot of room to grow.
For sure. And at the start of your presentation, you mentioned about Amazon, and obviously Amazon Prime and the way Amazon drove, but Amazon was also losing billions of dollars on their logistics side of things and subsidizing it with the rest of their business.
The AWS.
Everyone trying to meet them. I think everyone started to lose money for a long time trying to meet that standard, but I think this in-time solution sounds a lot better, and is obviously coming in. Where are you sort of seeing people trying to compete against, say, the Amazons or ASOSes and all of that? And how do little retailers implement these type of solutions?
First of all, maybe the good example, although it's a very specific industry, is, are you familiar with Instacart? In the US, Instacart is essentially in the food sector helping. They've established a marketplace, and you go to use your Instacart card, and you purchase whatever you purchase, say from Tesco. The equivalent of Tesco would be Kroger in the US, and then they go to that store. They send people to that store to pick things and ship it to you. Very convenient from the consumer point of view, but from a retailer's perspective, not so much. Although a lot of retailers have adopted Instacart because it's an easy entry into Omnichannel, but they have no contact to the consumer. So they lose the customer relationship, which is a tricky thing. And if you do it this way, yes, you can also go on the marketplace of Amazon, but you're not holding the relationship. You should try to aim to create your own ecosystem, have your own website, integrate maybe third-party marketplaces or your own marketplace. You hold the relationship. And the beauty is that to do this is any retailer. The smallest retailer we have has 5 stores, and the biggest 7,000. And you can do this regardless of size. You need a bit of a complexity. If you have one store, that's maybe a bit difficult because you don't need so much intelligence to route orders and take care of various inventories. And the entry, the costs to entry, the barriers, or let me phrase it the other way around. The barriers to entry are extremely low. It's now moving all towards web services, software as a service. You don't need to invest in server infrastructures, etc., etc. It's typically order-based, so you pay for performance, if you like. So the upfront costs are neglectable. The operating costs are close to zero, if you like. You need to integrate your systems. That's, of course, a bit of a time-consuming effort, but the costs are really, really low. Any retailer, I mean, one of our first customers was a bakery. We were like, wow, a bakery. So if a bakery can do this, any retailer can do this.
Sure. Any questions from the audience? No? Cool. I think you covered everything because no one's got anything to say. So.
We're fast. Speed, right?
Speed.
It's about speed. I just gave you 15 minutes of your life.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so
Love
much.
the presentation. Thanks everyone too.